Hi everybody, welcome back to Mr. Chuffy84. My name's Steve and I hope you've been enjoying the videos I've recorded here on YouTube so far. And on this third video I was going to do a little review of those 7-inch singles from last time round that I got free from Head Records. They were a surprise bunch. I didn't know what they were until I opened the package. I've checked out some of them already. I played a few of them on the hospital radio show that I did on Tuesday. Those are the ones that didn't have the adapters in them, so I couldn't play them on my own turntable, whereas I could do in the hospital radio station. So I did that as part of a vintage vinyl section of the show, and that went well, and those ones were quite fun. I enjoyed those, and I've checked out a couple of others so far. Those ones, the ones I've heard at home, weren't so good, but I'll leave that till next time, and I'll also share with you my private collection and my favourites from the private collection. But today I thought I'd do something slightly different. It's the 22nd of February 2020, and that date for jazz fans might be significant. It might be, because for this video I wanted to share with you my love of this label, Blue Note Records. Is I'm a big jazz fan, as well as pop music, rock music, classical music, etc. All kinds of genres, but jazz I do love, and Blue Note Records is my favourite jazz label, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But 35 years ago today, a historic concert took place in New York's Town Hall. It's called One Night with Blue Note, and it was a concert that did two things. It was a reunion concert for the greats of the label from the 50s and 60s, Jimmy Smith, Herbie Hancock, Lou Donaldson, Stanley Turrentine, Jackie McLean, the list goes on and on and on. So it was a reunion concert, but it was also a relaunch concert, because that night marked the relaunch of the label in the mid-80s. And they were showcasing in that concert, as well as the greats of the label, they also had the new signings: Stanley Jordan, Charles Lloyd, Michelle Petrucciani, Cecil Taylor, amongst others, performing in that same concert. So because it's the 35th anniversary today of that concert, I thought I'd share with you, as I was saying, my love of that label. For the last 5 years, I've been delving into the classic albums of Blue Note Records. Why are they why are they the best jazz label? Well, it's down to four gentlemen. The first two gentlemen, Alfred Lion and Francis Wolff, who created the label back in 1939. So the label itself celebrated 80 years just last year. Francis Wolff, one of the co-founders, also was the photographer on all the sessions, on the jazz sessions, and he took some of the most iconic photography in jazz history, which is reflected on some of the albums, on the album covers, such as Art Blakey's album. It's just known as Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers on the cover there, but it's also known as the Moanin' album because of its famous track. Moanin' is one of the great Blue Note tracks of all time, and it launches the album as well. So Francis's photography is showcased obviously with that cover, as well as the live photography as well. He just took candid shots of the musicians in between takes, when they were setting up, when they were packing up, whatever, and that some of those shots that he took were used for the album covers, and as I say, and for the liner notes as well. Also, Reed Miles, who did the cover design for the albums, such as this one by Kenny Burrell, the guitarist. So you've got Francis' photography, obviously with Kenny there, but the design of the album as well. Reed Miles was the man who did the cover design, just as iconic as the photography. So already, before putting a record on, a Blue Note record on, already it looks cool. The question is, does it sound cool? Well, the answer is yes, because of the engineer Rudy Van Gelder, who recorded and engineered so many of the Blue Note albums throughout its history, including its classic albums. And the jazz sounds so good. It sounds great. It sounds, I don't know how to describe it, but the acoustics are brilliant because of the studios that they recorded. It was his own studio, Rudy's own studio, where lots of the recordings took place. And just the acoustics are amazing, and it just sounds amazing. And the jazz itself is unbelievable. Some of the greatest jazz music ever recorded on the Blue Note Records label. So what I thought I'd do is just share with you in the next just under 10 minutes some of those classic recordings and some of my personal favourites, as I say, to celebrate the 35th anniversary of that reunion concert. So you've seen already two of the classic albums: Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, otherwise known as the Moanin' album from 1958, and also the Kenny Burrell album Midnight Blue. It is a very bluesy album, hence the title, but very chilled, very relaxed, nice as a nice background album, just put on in the background, but nice and quiet in the background. Superb album for that. And we come to the album that is considered, I think, by many jazz fans to be not only one of the best Blue Note albums of all time, but one of the greatest jazz albums, period. It's this one, John Coltrane's Blue Train. The title track is as iconic as the album cover, and it is absolutely superb. Wonderful musicians on it too, and that's the great thing about these albums, is that these great musicians, not only were they did they lead their sections, but they were also sidemen in other sections too, and John Coltrane was one of those guys. This was the only album that he put out on Blue Note Records as the leader of the group, but he also was a sideman for other albums as well, like for Johnny Griffin and for Miles Davis. But this was his only album as a leader for Blue Note, and it is one of the best Blue Note albums of all, and one of the best jazz albums ever too. Other great albums showcasing the great cover designs and photography: Sonny Clark, the pianist, Jackie McLean, as we mentioned earlier on, who's a saxophonist. That's another good album too, worth checking out. Eric Dolphy's Out to Lunch, also considered to be one of the greatest Blue Note albums, which came out in 1964. And this is where the label, where Alfred Lion especially, one of the co-founders, wanted to explore different genres, different types of jazz, including free jazz. Now, I'm not a free jazz fan. Now, free jazz is kind of anything goes. The structures are more loose. The tunes are not always as memorable. It's kind of it's a lot of improvisation going on in free jazz. So rather than having a strict tune that's played like twice round, and then you go into your soloing by the members of the band, and then you come back to the tune at the end. With free jazz, the structure that it doesn't follow that sort of structure. It's kind of all over the place, and some free jazz is too loose, and there's nothing to grasp hold on to, no hooks or tunes to grab hold of. But in this case, that is different. The structures, the traditional jazz structures, are still there, but the tunes are a bit more complex and need repeated listening to really appreciate it and get into it. So this is a free jazz album which I can actually enjoy listening to. And as I say, considered to be one of the best in the Blue Note canon. Herbie Hancock, the pianist, the famous jazz pianist, is one of my favourite jazz artists, and he put out 7 albums as a leader for the label, and appeared as a sideman on many other Blue Note albums. But these 2 as a leader are the pinnacle of his output on Blue Note. Imperial Isles from 1964 which is a quartet date with Freddie Hubbard, Ron Carter and Tony Williams, and there's some superb tracks on here. One Finger Snap, Liliquy Valley, and his standard Cantaloupe Island is on here. It's a superb album, really worth checking out. And the album which came after that, considered to be his best on the label, is Maiden Voyage. Again, wonderful cover design. It's a concept album. Maiden Voyage, the title track, and Dolphin Dance are the highlights of this album. Two of my favourite of Herbie's compositions, and well worth checking out. Okay, moving on very quickly. Soul Station. Now this was one by Hank Mobley, the saxophonist. This is the one I heard recently. Well worth checking out. Really good. This is a good example of a really good Blue Note album, like the John Coltrane album. Everything about it's so good. The cover design's great. The jazz is great. The sound is great. Really worth checking out. The Sidewinder by the trumpeter Lee Morgan. Now this is from 1963, when the title track was also a pop hit, as well as a jazz hit. So it actually hit the pop charts as well as the jazz charts, because the Sidewinder itself is very kind of swinging 60s kind of feel to it. It has its jazz roots, has a bit of swinging 60s pop to it too. So again, really good record to listen to, very easy to get into, well worth checking out. Again, one of the classic Blue Note albums, as is this one by the pianist Horace Silver. Song for My Father. Horace put out a lot of albums as a leader. He was also famously the pianist for Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, and then he went out on his own and was a leader. Recorded a lot of albums under his own name, but this is the pinnacle of his career without question. One of the greatest jazz albums in the Blue Note canon. The title track and the rest of the album is very strong, but Song for My Father is the iconic track from that album, and that is Horace's own father on the cover there, which is really nice. Jimmy Smith, the jazz organist, Hammond organist that is, Back at the Chicken Shack is considered to be his most famous for the label. But one of my favourites of Jimmy's is The Sermon. Just 3 tracks on this album. The Sermon itself, the title track, is a 20-minute jam. On paper it sounds boring as anything, but when you listen to it, it is excellent. It is excellent. And Art Blakey plays on this, the drummer. He plays on this album, and he just keeps the groove, the shuffle groove, going for 20 minutes solid. Doesn't let up at all. It is astonishing, absolutely astonishing. But one reason why I love this album is because of Flamingo, which is the ballad on this album. Lee Morgan, the trumpeter, is on this album. He leads on that track, and it is some of the most beautiful playing by Lee Morgan on trumpet. So if you're a trumpeter, please do check out Flamingo from this album, and Lee Morgan's playing is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And another of my favourites, Green Street by Grant Green, the guitarist. And the reason why I love this is because of the fact that it's a very unusual lineup in the sense it's just guitar, bass and drums. No piano, no horn instruments, just guitar, bass and drums, and it works so well. There weren't many of that combo in the Blue Note canon, but it works so beautifully, especially their rendition of Thelonious Monk's Round About Midnight. Absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous. Please do check it out if you can. So there you go. That's it. So Blue Note Records, my favourite jazz label, and I hope that this video has inspired you to check out some of those albums. Okay, so that's it from me then for today. Next time I will definitely do those singles. I'll review those singles and share my collection with you too. I hope you have a good weekend, everybody, and I will look forward to seeing you soon. Okay, take care everybody. Catch you soon. Bye for now.